Hello all, it's a continuation to the series where we have seen the ethics dilemmas in public as well as private organizations. So let's see what guides these dilemmas and how these conflict resolutions can happen, because we are giving a crux of the idea. In fact, this whole video will happen to be very useful for any kind of an answer writing for the other chapters as well, because there are some sources through laws, rules, regulations and conscience through which your ethical dilemmas can be solved. So let's quickly begin with the conscience is nothing but the inner voice. We always say that my inner voice doesn't allow me to go and pursue another career because I want to become an IAS officer, I want to become an IPS officer, that is what I determined for. So this is what we always think, right? The same thing, that inner voice is nothing but conscience. We say it as an intuition or the judgment that will assist us to make a right or a wrong decision. Okay, that comes as a voice within and acts as an inner light for a moral sense of being right or wrong. It is nothing but human actions that go against to the moral. That is why your conscience says that don't go for it. Anything that will go in congruence to your inner voice will always make you feel that yes, it is ethically right and I shall pursue that career or leave this career. So this kind of a dilemma, because of the resolve by the conscience, it gets resolved in a better manner. So that one kind of a source comes from the conscience, which is also known as the inner voice. There are different types of conscience. The one is true, which means that judgment is based on a particular fact. Only when you know the fact, then you go for it. Erroneous is something where the judgment is false because you don't have any of the knowledge, practical knowledge about anything. That is why you have made some judgment regarding a person beforehand by making some prejudices in the mind and then going for the conscience. The inner voice says that yes, the person is not suitable for your friendship, but it is an erroneous conscience because you have not been making it on a rational basis. And then is a certain conscience which says that the judgment on the morality action is without any fear of error. You can apply it or you cannot apply it. It is depending upon the situation, and it's always a certain conscience. So is this phenomena reliable guide for any kind of an ethical decision making? Let's see it. Conscience, it is like there is various schools of thoughts. With one of them say that yes, it is guiding. Other says that it doesn't guide because there is no rationality or the rational base based upon which kind of a decision is made. Inner voice doesn't mean every time it will be right. Okay, so then there is a person called the Saint Paul who believes that the conscience was a moral guide and within, and it doesn't needs any rules or theories exactly to actually come to a judgment. So according to him, it is a moral guide. So we consider in general that conscience will play a very good role in having a kind of a guidance towards making a ethical decision making. So the next thing is that how conscience can be acting as a source. Now we have seen it is acting, but how is it acting? Let's understand. It is reducing the corruption, nepotism or profit seeking motive. It is a collective value of an individual where citizens are very important in the public service value, and serving the nation as the highest ideals. Conscience always says that you have to go all together with the people. You have to stand for the unity. So that is where it is acting as a source for the ethical dilemmas. So next comes what is the difference between laws and rules. So difference between laws and rules are nothing but one side, laws are kind of a legal version of the rules itself. Rules are something, there are telling you that this is the boundary, don't just go out of the boundary. So there is traffic rules that you have to not jump off the red light, you have to always maintain the distance between the white margin where the red light stops, or you have to go in the left path or right path. These are all rules. They tell you the boundaries that shouldn't be just crossed. But the laws are an enforcement. Traffic rules, when you don't put on your helmet, then you are fined. That is a law. Whereas jumping the red light will fine you, that is a law. Whereas jumping the red light should not be done, that is a rule. Okay, so that is a basic difference. So laws are written in specific, rules are never written. It is just made to understand. You have to interpret from them. And then when you break a law, there is always a legal action that is followed. When you break a rule of a classroom or a organization, you are just reprimanded for a time period, or you will be given a warning, but you will never be penalized for it. Now, what are the different characteristics of a law? Law has to be kinds of 4 types of characteristics. Law has to be exhibiting. One, it has to be very consistent. It has not to be inconsistent. It will be continuous form, where how many ages will come, it will just be the same. Laws like suppose murdering a person, has it been changing, or it has been reducing its impact? No, in fact, we are strengthening the provisions with the ethical scrutiny applied to the principle of murdering as a value, as a anti or unethical value, right? So the law has to be consistent with the provisions, and it has to be universal. It has to apply irrespective of any religion, caste, creed. It should be published. It should be accessed by the people easily. That is why it is published by the statute books. And then it should be accepted everywhere. Nobody can obey it. That is the characteristic of being a law. There is regulation. Regulation here is nothing but, it's defined 2 things. One is monitoring and enforcing the legislations. What do you do as a civil servant is you implement them, you enforce them as legislations, like you put them on the view. That is why you are also called the district magistrate, because you are regulating it and enforcing the legislations. By executive, for smooth functioning of the law, it is also done. Regulation can also be done, and it is providing a skeletal kind of a framework for a better governance structure to address a particular subject in the sense, suppose health is there, so you have a framework, the regulations in the health governance sector. What are the regulations? What does this Indian Medical Association tell you? The doctors, which all qualification doctors are eligible to work in the health sector. So that is where it is defining is regulation. So regulations are meant to provide a framework which is detailed and intricate in making these laws work. So that is what a framework, just like the fence of your house, it is same like that. It's a regulation is that regulating act of 17 we have seen many regulating acts in the British period also. What are these? These are regulating, like these many board of directors have to be there, the secretary general has to be there, then then you have this British general who will get appointed by the Queen. So all these provisions are the regulations for monitoring of India. After this East India Company has fallen, because of the correct practices, the Queen has taken up through her generals. So the generals are appointed to regulate the conditions over in India. The same example, pretty good example, you can understand the regulation portion. So these are the sources of ethical guidance by laws, rules, regulations and conscience. It is a very brief but yet an impactful, because you can use it anywhere else in the other answers also. So let's get into the answer writing questions. So the first question, you can write it down in the comment section, is that explain how that laws, rules, regulations differ in providing the ethical conduct of one's life. The very direct question which we've already dealt in the session, let me explain it to you through model answer also. First, what you will do is you will define each of the terminology. That is the basic for any answer structure. Law, rules, regulation, just define it. So laws, what I would define it, I would say that laws are just the standards, procedures, so the principles that must be followed, and it is enforceable by all the judicial systems that are responsible for breaking it can be prosecuted in the court. So some of the laws you can always bring in, like the Dowry Act, or the decriminalization of the suicide, or any other kinds of acts which have been in the recent news, right? So this is where the newspaper reading will come into handy. The examples can only pop out initially or on spontaneity when you have a good hold of your newspaper. Newspaper reading is that important. At least have an idea of what kind of crux of the topics are going on in the newspaper. So that is where you add some examples with the laws, and then you go on to define the rules as well. Rules, you say that these are the conditions which set the boundaries and makes the living in the society more ordered and organized. Okay, then comes the regulations. Regulations are nothing but these create a constraint that within which the duty or the allocation of the responsibility is made through. And then the conscience is nothing but making moral decisions in overwhelming forces of inescapable situations. Conscience is like inescapable situations is nothing but ethical dilemmas. Whenever you have these ethical dilemmas, the inner voice comes out and tells you what you have to do, which course of action you should take. So that is a conscience, making moral decisions by taking the risk and adverse consequences. Consequences can be anything, but you have to take a stand in such inescapable situations. You cannot escape from the situations. For that, you define this one. And then you have to interlink at the final way. How you should interlink it? It says in the question that now how do these all provide an ethical conduct in one life? So the PDF itself will give you like a voice where what do you say? Yes, here the conscience is the guide for the ethical decision making. So how is an ethical guidance? It is giving corruption is being reduced, so you will have an ethical conduct of life. It is seeking to reduce a profit seeking behavior, and then it is promoting the individual conscience of the individuals of the citizens through collectivism, then serving the nation as the highest goal. So all in all, these are promoting a good conduct life. So the answer can be interlinked this way. And the second question is define conscience and how does it affect the ethical guidance structure of a civil servant. This is an open-ended answer. You can add any dimensions. Use the actually if you can go through the probity in governance prior to writing this question would be very helpful, because probity in governance is filled with material, filled with those kind of words or terminologies that can be utilized for this answer, especially the second part where the conscience will act as a guiding structure for civil servant. All the kinds of values have been incorporated into this chapter and you can very well write an answer to it. We shall anyway discuss in the next session the answer to this, but please do write, please make an effort to write and comment down below so that we'll be able to modify it. And then moreover, keep sharing, liking and subscribing to the channel, because that is the way it keeps us motivating to make good videos on the education purposes, which can make your study happier, easy and concise. So stay blessed, stay happy, keep learning. Jai Hind.